by email to me, and I will read those into the record when we get to that portion of the agenda. And one more note, Trevor, our law director, was not able to join the meeting. However, he is on standby if we need to have him call in for any legal questions. So I asked if the chairman, Mr. Flake, if you would, once we get to that point in the agenda, do the swearing in for everyone who would be participating in the adjudication hearings. But with that, I'll turn it over to the chairman and we can begin.
Okay, Tom, I looked at the agenda and I brought it up, but then when I came into the meeting here, it got all covered. So I'm, is there a magic wand to be able to see both?
Other than minimizing the Teams window, might be able to pull it up or make it smaller.
Okay, we'll try for a second, and then I'm gonna. I'm trying to remember. I think if I even saved everything before we started. So no, I don't think I did.
Okay.
So I could try minimizing it here and. Okay, I've got the packet.
Got the agenda. Okay.
Can't see anybody, but that's all right. This is the June 18th, 2020 meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals, City of Sandusky. So I will call the order. If you would do the roll call, please.
Mr. Fike?
I am present.
Mr. Zier? Not present. Mr. Matthews?
Present.
Dr. Siemens? Not present. And Mr. Delahunt?
I'm here.
Okay, so we have 3 members here. We have an agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes of the March 19th meeting?
I motion that we approve the meeting.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The minutes from the March 19th are approved. At this time, if anyone who is online here is going to be giving testimony, I need to swear you in. So if you'd all raise your right hand and then repeat after me. I promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God.
I do.
You're all sworn in. Okay, the first item on the agenda is, make this a little bit bigger so I can read it better. It's 1 Cedar Point Drive is asking for an area variance. The variance for the zoning code 1157.04E2 to allow the construction of a building at Cedar Point at 0.8 feet above the base elevation, whereas the zoning code requires 2 feet. If staff would read the report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To confirm, is everyone able to see the PowerPoint screen?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So this is a floodplain variance that was submitted by Cedar Point for the construction of a new dining facility along the Midway called the Corral. The application or the structure is located along the Midway, as you can see in the photo, encircled in red here. And this is a map of the floodplain showing exactly where it is. The variance is for a 0.8 feet variance to the flood regulations for the city. And we have both a representative from Cedar Point and Josh Snyder from the engineering division here to answer additional questions or give additional information about this variance request.
Okay, I'm assuming that, if I get all the names here, that Adam was going to make a presentation for Cedar Point, or is he going to have someone else?
Yeah, Adam is on the line. Yes.
Okay. Adam, if there's anything you'd like to tell us about the requests, if so, please do so at this time. Not hearing anything.
Let me check here. He's listed in the room. Adam, are you able to hear us?
I see his name on his initials and his name pops up. Well, let's move forward with this. We've had this request before from Cedar Fair. I think the sports park was the last one that we'd seen this on, and we've done this on several other venues at Cedar Point. From what I can tell, and correct me if I'm wrong, and maybe Josh should weigh in, but there is a base flood elevation that the federal government establishes, and the city of Sandusky establishes a buffer 2 feet above that. And what Cedar Point is asking for is a variance to go up. They're still above the FEMA elevation, but they're 8/10 below the extra 2 feet. Josh, is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Pike, that is correct.
And if I remember correctly, in the past, we have approved these from Cedar Point simply because everything in the park is already established, and they are aware of the issues. So, are there any questions? Well, there's a picture of Adam. Adam, is there something you want to tell us now? You can hear, but you can't talk. He's got laryngitis today. Well, let's go. Is there any questions from either Walter or Dan?
No, there's none for me.
Dan?
I have none. Nope.
Then how about, I think if there's no questions, is there a motion that either of you'd like to make?
I'll make a motion that we accept the plan submitted by Cedar Point for this particular project.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Are there any questions on that motion? Hearing none, call the roll, please.
Mr. Pike?
Yes.
Mr. Matthews?
Yes.
Mr. Delahunt?
Yes.
That variance is approved. Thank you, Adam. We will go to the next item on the agenda, which is an application for an area variance to construct a carport projecting in the required rear yard at 731 Perry Street. Is that correct? I got the right one? Can you hear me, Tom? There we go.
Okay, sorry about that. There we go.
That's right. Is this the number 2 on the agenda?
It is, yes.
Okay,
So this is a 731 Perry Street. It is a multi-family zoning district. The parcels are outlined here on the screen for you to see. What the applicants are John and Dell McDonald. They had submitted an application to construct a carport, which would be constructed against the back end or the western end of their garage. The code does not allow for any encroachments into the required backyards for carports. And due to the orientation of the yard and the size, this would impede into the required backyard. However, if it were detached or an accessory structure, it would meet all the required setbacks, but because it's being attached to the house, it is determined that it is part of the structure. So that is the variance they're applying for, and staff has recommended for approval. I know the applicants, I'm not sure if the applicants are on, are either John or Dell on the line to speak any further about this request?
Apparently not.
See them. I know
Let's
they may
go.
have.
Let's go to the board. Dan or Walter, do either of you have any questions on this variance?
So
No,
they're going
no.
right off of that garage. Is that the garage they're looking at, that 2-car white garage?
As I understand it, that's exactly what they're doing, yes.
So 10 feet.
Yes.
And there's nothing from the neighbors. We don't have any input from the neighbors. Do they have any issues?
We have not received any feedback, either positive or negative, from neighbors about this.
Okay. Walter, do you have any questions?
No, I don't.
And it sounds like the motion is in order.
Mr.
I
Chairman,
motion that we pass the variance on this property.
I'll second that.
We have a motion by Walter, second by Dan to approve this variance. If you call the roll, please.
Mr. Delahunt,
Yes.
Mr. Matthews,
Yes.
Mr. Fike,
Yes, that variance is approved. Next item up is an application for an area variance to construct a 4-foot fence in the front yard at 606 Wayne Street. Get the staff's report, please, Tom.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This was an application submitted by Casey Jacobs, who is on the line I see here. This is a house that's on Wayne Street in a 2-family zoning district. As you can see on the satellite view from the auditor, there was a house right next door that was recently demolished. And it's all one parcel owned by this property owner. To the left, on the photo on the left, you see the current status of the lots in the house. On the right is a photo of the other side of the house. As I noted in the staff reports, this property received a variance a number of years ago to construct a 4-foot high fence, decorative fence that you can see in the photo there. And so due to the wanting to enclose the other portion of the yard with the fence, the applicant has asked for a variance to allow for the continuation of the fence in the similar height that currently exists based on their last variance that they received. Staff, based on the previous approval, staff thought that it was appropriate and recommended it for approval. And like I said, Ms. Jacobs is on the line to answer any specific questions about the variance request.
Okay, at this time, Ms. Jacobs, do you want to address the board?
I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. I didn't hear, I heard you say Miss Jacobs, but then I didn't hear what followed.
Okay, would you like to address the board with your comments, please?
Yes, please. I think Mr. Horstman got it perfectly correct. You know, we're just looking to, now that we have purchased the lot next door, we're just looking to enclose it in a manner that's consistent with the current structure that's already up. So we're just looking for that 4-foot variance across the front to come off of the front porch there on this other side and close that other lot.
Okay, I've got a question. Have you combined this new parcel with your existing, or is it going to remain as a separate lot?
No, we have combined them, and actually it's been redeeded into my husband's name, who's here with me as well, so I don't know if we need to be hearing from him more specifically. But yes, those lots were combined shortly after the purchase.
Okay, and I do remember when the request was brought for the fence for the corner parcel, or the corner of your property, and I remember being approved, and that's a very nice fence. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Walter, do you have any questions for Ms. Jacobs or
But,
staff?
I was looking at this fence. It is a very nice fence there. No, I don't have any questions.
Thank you.
Dan, do you have any questions?
No, I'm good.
Okay,
I'll
then
make a motion that we accept the variance as proposed.
okay, we have a motion from Dan,
I second.
and we have a second from Walter. Any questions on the motion? Hearing none, if you'd call the roll, please.
Mr. Fike?
Yes.
Mr. Matthews?
Yes.
Mr. Delahunt?
Yes.
The variance is approved. Okay, the next item.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a great day, everybody.
The next is an application for an area variance to reduce the amount of required off-street parking spaces at 317 East Washington Street. Tom, you want to give staff's report?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. This site is the old Cardinal Grocery site that has been recently purchased and has planned conversion into a Sandusky food hall. It's in the downtown business district zoning. As you can see there, the parcel backs up against the Markets Grounds parking lot. And the variance request comes in due to the required amount of parking spaces, which staff has determined would be 91 spaces based on the usage inside of the building. The food hall is a multi-tenant facility, so we do think it's unique and it's not something that is specifically called out in our parking schedule. And so we do think a variance is necessary because we do think the strict application provides for a practical difficulty. As you can see, the site plan is listed here. That there are 47 spaces laid out. I will note this is about less than a block to the east of the central business district, which requires no off-street parking for development. But because this is just outside of that boundary, this does not subject to the regulations. This has also been submitted for site plan approval before the Planning Commission next week. And if the variance is approved, then that will move forward with the Planning Commission. Jeff Foster, who is the owner's rep and the architect of the project, is on the line and provide more details, but staff is in support of this. I do want to read into the record two neighbor comments that were submitted to me via email. The first one is from Mr. David Bowie from 320 East Washington Street. His comment is, this is the food hall project that is directly across the street from my residence. I am in full support of their parking requirement variance. This project, with its proximity to the new college apartments, the Sandusky Bay Pathway, and downtown in general, will receive a ton of walk-up and bicycle business. To the extent that parking becomes an issue on East Washington for residents on the south side of Washington Street, I am sure that the city will entertain residential parking permits. The other comment came from Donna Minio at 403 East Washington, who called me yesterday and just wanted to enter in that her concern was any potential noise that the outdoor seating area would happen there. But nothing related specifically to the parking. So those were the two resident comments that came in.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Foster, is there anything you'd like to tell us?
No, we're excited about the repurpose of this building. We think it's a unique venue for the Sandusky area, and it's as the one neighbor had noted, there's going to be a lot of walk-up traffic to this. So we feel that the adjustments we've made in the back parking lot, I mean, the current lot that's there right now was always geared towards semi-deliveries for the grocery. We don't have those kind of deliveries that'll be coming to this facility, so we've changed what was 2 lanes of parking into 3 drive lanes. So that allowed us to actually make that back parking lot a little more efficient and a little clearer in its use. It gives us an opportunity on the north end as well to unify the streetscape a little bit. Right now, it's kind of one continuous curb cut, and we're able to get some street trees integrated, clean up the tree lawn a little bit, and really make that a drastic improvement.
Okay, is there anything else?
No, sir.
If not, Walter, do you have any questions, comments?
Yes, I like to know the hours and how many days a week, and also is there cameras that's going to be used?
So the hours, we haven't established the hours yet. One of the delays we've had in sort of finalizing our design and construction of the building is working with the operator. It's managed by a single operator that will handle the tenants internally, so we haven't firmed up the hours of operation as of yet. And to your question on cameras, what specifically are you referring to in terms of cameras?
Well, I'm just saying, are you going to have the cars out there parked, and it depends on how you're going to be open. You know, are you going to be open at 10 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock, you close at 6 o'clock, or what?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm. I don't have those exact hours, but I do know that they will be later into the evening. We do have a bar component with this as well, so I would assume.
You should definitely have cameras if you're going to have be late hours, don't you think?
I would think so, but that's again an operational issue that the management will have to decide on.
Okay, anything else, Walter?
No, I'd like to see them cameras, that's all.
We'll take that into consideration.
Dave, do you have any questions?
On the west side of the what's the current parking lot that you're changing? Are those planters on the site plan there that I?
They are, yeah. What we're doing is we're eliminating the curb cut that runs along Washington Street right now, and we're making that a pedestrian way between the building and the residents to the west. So we're planning to have some planters along that west elevation.
So is that sidewalk? Okay, I'm kind of small, but the sidewalk is in front of on the east side of those planters, not behind it, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, I'm good.
Okay, a couple questions from me then. I'm really not sure specifically what your venue is. It says market, but who are the vendors inside? I heard that one's going to be a bar, which concerns me because of the number of people that will be there.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So what the food hall concept is think of it as a high-class food court. I hate to use the term food court, but it's a venue that has different craft food options and a variety of food options and operators within one common venue. So there's a common seating area and a common gathering area that has smaller food venues that are wrapped around it. So you can, Tom, do you have the ability to zoom in on your screen? Or can you share can I share my screen?
I'm looking at the plan that I see, and it shows I'm assuming that along the entire south side is the tables and chairs that are inside. And then it appears to be, I'm guessing, in the front on the west side, which is right next to where the old entrance used to be. I'm guessing that is a bar.
Yes, that's correct. So you have seating that wraps along where the checkouts were in the Cardinal, and then in that center section, there's a group of picnic table type seating, some common type seating, and then as you work your way northbound to the rear of the building, you see there you go. You have three vendors, which would be a different food operator. And then there's one on the western side, which is intended to be more of a coffee/bakery operation that can serve at different times of day. So each of these would then be a different type of food operator.
Well, I see that your occupant load here is 275 people.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess what concerns me is at 275, if we just say that 4 people come in a car, we've got over 80 cars that are going to be here, but we don't have 80 parking places.
Correct. So what our variance request is as Tom had mentioned, you know, by code, zoning code, we'd be required to have 97 spaces on site. So we have, our site allows for 48 on-site spaces, but from our informal windshield survey in the 2-block surrounding areas, there's 147 on-street spaces. So if you combine that with what we're providing on site, that's a total of 195 spaces. So that's a little more than twice what would be required on site for us. And as we've talked about, there's a lot of walk-up traffic as well that will come to and from this site as well. So we feel that combining that on-street parking with the 48 spaces we're providing on site is more than adequate for our function.
Where are these other parking places that you're talking about?
So Tom, if you could zoom back out.
I'm looking at the locations and quantities of on-street parking, and I see the picture, but I don't see anything which says, well, there's where all these are coming from.
Well, so they're noted. I've got them noted on that plan. It shows you like along East Market, there's 26 angled spaces and 17 parallel spaces between Hancock and Franklin. Between Franklin and Warren, there are 24 parallel spaces. So that's how we total up to the 147 on street.
I see that, but I guess what concerns me is the BGSU Cedar Point building isn't completed, and they have 0 site parking. At least it appears that way to me. I don't know. Tom, do you have any numbers on that building? I don't know if Tom's there or not, but you know, we're going to.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, my mic was off. It's about 35 off-street parking for the BGSU facility, and staff is currently working with them to make sure that there's a parking plan in place for both residents, commuting students. That would work in conjunction with using the East Market public lot, and then also making sure there's adequate parking for the food hall area. But that is all under active conversations at the staff level, just to put that out there.
Is the parking lot immediately behind this project where the drive-through there? Is that city owned or is it?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, this is Tom. Yes, that is a City of Sandusky owned parking lot.
Okay. And is it the plan to have the students at Cedar Point that are residents park in that lot? Is that?
Through Mr. Chairman, as of now, our downtown parking residential permit policy does allow for the residents that have permits to park in any of our residential or any of our city lots. We're currently exploring more ways to add on-street parking, especially on the East Market block just to the east of Franklin. There's the right-of-way is fairly wide, and there's no striped parking there. So staff is just looking at various ways that we can increase the number of on-street spaces in the general vicinity to make sure that there's adequate supply for the increased demand that these two projects would bring online.
Well, my concerns are, if we allow not meeting the required parking requirements for this parcel, and then we add in the Bowling Green Cedar Point, which is going to be taking a lot of parking, and I look in that neighborhood, East Market, because of the gym that's there on the corner of East Market and Hancock. That parking lot and the street is jammed at 3 different times during the day. I'm just wondering if we're going to have enough parking. I'm a little hesitant here. I would prefer if they could come back at at our next meeting and show us where the Cedar Point people are going to park and the numbers that their requirement are going to be in conjunction with this one, along with the gym that's there and all the parking that they're required to have. And if the city has the plans and where they're going to show us where this additional parking is going to be.
Yeah, through Mr. Chairman, this is Tom. I do just want to reiterate when staff was reviewing this and when we talked with the applicant, that in our view, the schedule of parking in our zoning ordinance, which dates to 1960s or 50s, just did not adequately probably describe what the use is of this building. And I do think that based on the demand of it at any one time, that staff did think that, there are quite a substantial amount of on-street parking spaces here. And really anything that would go into this facility would likely need a parking variance in order for it to be reused again, just because of the square footage. So in our view, we just thought that the requirements that were there were arbitrary and not necessarily indicative of what the actual use of the facility would be. And we thought there would be adequate. That being said, being cognizant of the fact that we do need to actively make sure that we do increase the amount of available parking on street and making sure that we have appropriate turnover in our parking lots and such like that. But we did strongly believe that there was adequate based on the proposed usage of the facility on site.
And how many are currently there right now?
So there are currently 62 spaces on site. So to Mr. Horstman's point,
It's even short the way that it is right now.
absolutely. And I guess what I'd like to point out, and from an urban design standpoint, the current lot as it stands with 62 spaces, you can picture how much asphalt that is compared to how much building there is. So picture another third of that being paved. And as you think about how close this is to the downtown district, it would be very detrimental to the downtown district to tear down more buildings to have more asphalt for uses like this. It is even though it's a higher population function, it really serves a very urban purpose. It's meant to be porous. It's meant to have walkers coming in and out of the building. Thus the reason that we're creating that outdoor courtyard. So, and we think it's going to do a great job kind of enhancing the street life downtown. And we just feel that adding more asphalt to the surrounding areas would be a detriment to that.
I understand where you're coming from. I'm just again concerned. I mean, parking is going to be a big deal here if the Cedar Point Bowling Green thing, which is going to open up in September, and all their apartments, we're going to have a ton of people that are going to need parking. And I don't want to saddle everybody else who's already here, both residential and commercial, with people parking in places that they're not supposed to. You've got a high rise over there with parking. You've got cable TV with that provide their own off-street parking. That's just my comments. I'm very concerned with taking parking away, and that we're not providing enough to start with. So
I think you're right there.
That's only me talking right now, as I have a hard time, I guess, approving this. I would be more inclined to table it for a month and have you come back with a study and show me where everybody is going to park, both for the Bowling Green and the numbers that are going to be there if the building is fully occupied and this, all the apartments and the Bowling Green classes are in session. How many people that's going to be, where these people are going to park, and combine it with this food court where 275 people are potentially could be here, and look at it next month and review it at that time, and if that's enough time for the city or Mr. Foster to put together the numbers.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I like the project. I think, that those spots on the side of the building are, I used to go into Cardinal quite often. They're kind of tough to get in and out anyway. But I agree with you. I don't know what the thought was where Cedar Point with the BGSU building, where they were going to park anyway when that project started. I don't think I was around when that began. So I would like to see those comments come back from the city also. So I will make a motion to table this and bring it back in the next meeting to see if we can get some ideas of what the city really thinks is going to happen with that general area there regarding parking.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Mr. Matthews, it's up to you.
I second it.
We have a motion and a second to table this for 1 month. Are there any questions on the motion? Hearing none, if you call the roll, please.
Mr. Delahunt?
Yes.
Mr. Matthews?
Yes.
Mr. Fike?
Yes, this request for a variance has been tabled.
Mr. Chairman, just a note, Dr. Siemens has joined the meeting, and he is here as well.
I don't know, has he been here long enough to hear the comments of this project, or?
Bill, you're muted.
Yes, I heard that whole section, and I will agree and vote yes on that tabling of that.
Okay. Great. Good to see you, Dr. Siemens. Then we'll go to the next item. It's an application for an area variance to reduce the amount of required off-street parking spaces at 609 East Perkins Avenue. Tom, if you give us your report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is another parking variance request based off of the required parking for a restaurant facility, 609 Perkins. This is a proposed reuse of an existing structure, an old Lone Max structure that the applicant is proposing to turn into a carry-out Pizza Hut establishment. There is a slight revision in the site plan that has been submitted that the proposed variance or proposal would be 11 parking spaces down from the required 18 that the code would require. The other variance is for to allow for the lack of a 3-foot landscape buffer on the east side of the property due to space constraints. This property is going for site plan approval again at the Planning Commission, or plan to next week. Staff believe because the parking requirements were based off of a restaurant, a dine-in facility, that they did not adequately reflect the use that is going here, which is going to be a carry-out facility where people will just park, carry out. And so staff did think the variance is appropriate and recommends approval. We do have a representative from the applicant on the line as well to answer additional questions or give additional comment. We did not receive any neighbor input from this project.
Okay, I'm not sure who's here on their behalf, but if they would tell us their name and
Jason Tusing. Jason Tusing here, property owner. Also on the line or also available for comment is Rod Steiger, the franchisee from Pizza Hut, and also Chris Howard from Bramhall Engineering. But as it was described, I don't really have any additional comments to add.
Okay. I'm just reading
This is
for myself, but go ahead. Who's the next person?
Hey, this is Rod Steiger, Pizza Hut franchisee. Can you hear me?
Yes, please
So,
go ahead.
One thing to note on this property, really 60% of our business never visits our site. We deliver to their home. So the business is very 60% of that business never comes to our site.
We're getting a lot of background from, I don't know where you are, but is there? I guess let me ask a couple questions, or let me ask the others on the board. Walter, do you have any questions for either gentleman?
Well, since you said it's going to be 60% delivery, I don't have any questions.
Okay. Mr. Delahunt, do you have any questions?
Are there any future plans to have seating, or have you allowed room for seating within the restaurant?
No plans for seating.
So, I guess the other part of that is there any seating in the restaurant, or is it strictly a pickup window?
Currently, there's no seating in the restaurant, or nothing designed in the restaurant. It would only be a pickup window.
Okay. That answer your questions, Dan?
Yep.
Okay, Dr. Seaman, do you have any questions?
No further questions. Thank you.
I don't have any. The questions that I had have been answered. So there is a motion in order.
I would move to approve this variance.
Okay, Dr. Seaman makes a motion. We need a second.
Second.
We have a second from Walter Matthews. Any questions on the motion? If you'd call the roll, please.
Mr. Fike,
Yes.
Mr. Matthews,
Yes.
Dr. Siemens,
Yes.
Mr. Delahunt.
Yes.
The variance is approved. The next
you, guys.
item on the agenda is an application for a use variance to allow for transient rental use in a residential zoning district at 327 Shelby Street. Tom, if you give the staff report.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chairman. This is a property that's in a two-family zoning district on Shelby, as you can see outlined on the map here. As we're all familiar with, our zoning code does not permit transient rental as an allowable use in a residential district unless it's in a transient overlay, of which only one exists currently in the Cove district. This is a neighborhood in which staff has gotten quite a few inquiries about the desire to operate transient rental properties, but as our code stands currently, it does not allow that. As you can see, a general business district is just to the north along Washington Street, which does allow for transient rental. However, this property is quite a few parcels down from that. This is a image of the property, just to give you an idea of what the property looks like from the exterior. And Jody Randall is the applicant who's on the line with us, who can give more additional information, but there was quite a few pieces of information that she submitted with the application that were submitted in the staff report. We as staff did not receive any comments from the neighbors, either for or against this proposal. But as to be consistent with staff's recommendations, because it's a use variance and the standard for those are very high, staff did tell the applicant that staff did not believe there was a unnecessary hardship due to the strict application of the zoning code, and so we were unable to recommend approval as we have in the past. But I would just say again, Jody is on the line to answer any additional questions or give more information.
Okay. If there's nothing else, Tom, let's go to Mrs. Randall, or Miss Randall.
Miss Randall.
Sorry.
Yes. Miss Randall. I do not live in Sandusky. I live in Central Ohio, so I bought this property to use myself because I love Sandusky, and I also bought it, to rent when I'm not here. I do feel, because I come to Sandusky very often, I worked at Cedar Point in 1984. My best friend is a dental hygienist here in Sandusky. That's what I am as well. And so I'm here often, and I found that, when you go uptown, there's just not a lot of places to stay here, and there's a lot of people that I'm sure are getting in cars that shouldn't. There's a big problem with no taxis, no Ubers, or waiting a considerable amount of time. So I thought this property would be great because it's within walking distance of downtown. And in that process, the realtor, the bank, no one has told me that I should check zoning. Now, I know my best friend's son has a property just 2 blocks over from here, almost exactly 2 blocks, and his is fine, although he's still working on it. So I was shocked after putting $25,000 into a house and making it look really good to find out that, as a single woman, that I'm now paying for two homes and I can't do anything about it. So to say it isn't a hardship is not completely true, maybe from your point of view, but not mine. So, I'm contemplating moving here, which, so I don't have 2 houses, because I don't want to long-term rent this. If I long-term rent it, then I can't use it, and that was the whole point of buying one. So, and my neighbors all did sign, and that is part of the record, that none of them care. But, and there is parking down the street. And then, of course, because I'm on Shelby Street, the parking down by the boat launch.
Anything else?
I don't know what else to say.
Okay. Well, maybe some questions here. I will start by saying that we've had this request in the past. We had a house over on 4th Street. The same, very similar to your conditions, not as close to zoning that would allow it, and we turned that down. So I start by giving that as a starting point for what we're going to talk about here. So, Dr. Seaman, do you have any questions for Ms. Randall?
I've got a question first for Tom. Where does the central business, what's the borders or boundaries of the central business district?
Through Mr. Chairman, the central business district is, sorry, let me think for a second. Between Jackson Street and, I'm sorry, I believe it's Decatur and Hancock. I'll have to double check that, but it does not come out this far. And then it goes down to, I believe, Adams. I can confirm that though for you.
So it doesn't extend along Washington to Shelby to include like the better half, or
so that is the as you can see in the blue on the map above that's general business district zoning. So that would allow similar uses that the downtown business district zoning would allow, which would include transient rental. So like the bike shop and a few of the houses north are in the general business zoning district.
Which are 2 minutes away, which I've heard that this is going to be zoned for transient rentals, possibly next year, just not this year.
I have no further questions at this time.
Well, Tom, just to relay on that, if I'm looking at it correct, this is the 5th parcel south of the, what did you say, roadside business that would allow
general,
it?
That's
general
correct.
Business district. Okay. All right, Mr. Delahunt, do you have any questions for either Tom or Ms. Randall?
Well, for Ms. Randall, I'd like to say welcome. Thanks for the investment in Sandusky, but we have been fighting this battle for quite a number of years about transient rentals, and we did come up with a solution with the overlay districts. And I am opposed to going outside those overlay districts and approving one-offs, as Mr. Fike already mentioned. I would suggest that try to rent it month to month, or a 6-month lease, and maybe start working with the neighbors to create in the city to create an overlay district so that you're able to do the transient rentals. But I am going to have to be opposed to this.
Okay, Tom, just fill us in. What is the procedure? Let's not figure we're voting yes or against this, but if she wanted to make this into an overlay, what would be required and how long would it take?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's a conversation that staff has with, as I mentioned, we've had quite a few people in this neighborhood reach out to us to inquire about the possibility of transient rental in this district. And so all those inquiries, we've told them that that there is a zoning process to go through, which obviously takes some time. It would at least be a few months long process to go. It would need approval by the planning commission and then approval by the city commission, which procedurally can, be a few months in time. That being said, it's something we would want to look at holistically as part of a planning process and making sure the neighborhood was something that they would want and that would make sense. And one thing that we looked at with the Cove District Transient Overlay District was looking at areas that really needed some investment in housing and trying to find ways or places where housing values could need help to bring up the quality of the housing stock. This may very well be a place to examine looking at that. And so there is an application process for rezoning, and we can, I think it's time for us to examine different areas of the city. But any person can submit an application for a rezoning. However, for staff recommendation, we just want to make sure that it's a holistic process and has lots of public involvement within the neighborhood.
Okay, the minimum, let's say Ms. Randall talked to all her neighbors, or at least the 4 to the north of her, and maybe the 4 that are on Camp Street also. Everybody was in favor of, the least amount of time, take 3 months?
I'd say about 3 months.
Okay, in worst case, maybe 6?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Okay, I just need a point of reference.
Sure.
Okay, Mr. Matthews, do you have any questions?
Well, the only thing I was going to say, since we're headed in that direction, she might want to rent it for 6 months.
But then I can't.
See what happens.
Then I can't be here in Sandusky, and that was the whole point of it. If I rent it, then I can't be here. Am I still allowed to transient rental if I'm here? Am I allowed to have people come stay with me and pay me if I'm here?
Tom, can you answer that for her? Because I can't.
I'm sorry.
She wants to know if she moves in to her half. I don't know, is this a side-by-side, up and down?
It's not. No, but it's 3 bedrooms, and if I'm in one room, people do it everywhere.
Okay, you're like.
Oh, I thought it was a 2-family also.
No, it's one.
No.
So it's almost like a bed and breakfast then.
Well, not bed and breakfast. I'm not going to be cooking for anybody.
Well, but it's like they're not separate with their own entrance. They're coming in your front door, and they've got a key to their bedroom.
Yeah, I have a side door, back door. Yeah, yeah.
All right.
Well, it states here 2-family though.
No, it's a single family. It's a single family.
Okay.
Yeah, through Mr. Chairman, there is greater flexibility in the code for what's called renting of rooms and such. I would need to double check the specific. I off the top of my head don't believe that would be a required or an allowable activity on its face. I would double check on that and I'll confirm with the applicant.
You do not.
I don't believe so.
That it is allowable.
I don't believe so off the top of my head.
Mr. Chairman.
Dr. Seaman.
First, I'd like to say I'm disappointed that any local realtors didn't realize this scenario with the trials and tribulations that we've had over the past probably 10 years with the transient rental situation. Once again,
the banker knew, they knew, everyone knew what my intentions were.
Right. I'm disappointed that they don't know our local zoning code. But to that end, I feel that we should allow her some time to contact neighbors before we deny this variance. I think we should.
I already did. It's part of my file. I had several neighbors sign saying they don't care. It's in my file.
Well,
that
I understand that, but we would need to have you go through getting the neighborhood to apply for an overlay district in that area to make this a legitimate zoning approved.
Which
Use
is going
of
to
the
take
building.
3 to 6 months.
It sounds as if it would be that sort of a time frame.
Mhm.
Yeah. Through Mr. Chairman, this is Tom again, and I just want to say from staff's perspective, this is obviously, it's a difficult situation, and I empathize. We empathize fully, and I had a conversation with Ms. Randall about this, and I, understand the frustration completely. I just, from staff's perspective, in terms of proving an unnecessary hardship and that the property couldn't be used as currently zoned, that the zoning creates a hardship for the property, staff just believes that hard requirement is not met in this case. That being said, I did mention that we were open to further exploring a zoning change or an overlay district if it's something that's appropriate, but as the applicant just mentioned, that would take some time, as we talked about. So I just want to make sure I fully understand the whole situation and empathize with it, but the use variance standard is very high, which is why we recommend no.
A few weeks ago, my smoke alarm went off, and the fire department had come and said how beautiful my house is, and I explained to them, and they said there's several people in town that are doing it, and they're doing it illegally. So I feel like I'm going through all of, it doesn't matter.
Okay, if there's no other questions, a motion is in order.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to deny the variance.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to deny the variance. Is there any questions on the motion? I will only preface by saying if you vote aye or yes, you are denying it. If you vote no, it means you would like the variance. You would like the variance not to pass. So, if you call the roll, please.
Mr. Delahunt,
Yes.
Dr. Siemens,
Yes.
Mr. Matthews,
Yes.
and Mr. Fike.
I vote no. I'm in favor of this, but the variance is denied, and we hope that you can get your neighbors and that they all be willing to jump into this in a hurry. And Tom, if she can come forward, I hope that you can expedite this for her. I'd like to see this. I know that neighborhood very well, and I'd like to see this work.
Yes, absolutely.
Get the next one up for me.
That is that was our last application.
That was the last one? Okay.
Yep, that was it.
Is there any other business that you need to bring before us?
Not from staff.
Okay, is there any items on the agenda for next month?
Yes, we have. I believe we've received one application for next month, and then the meeting date is July 16th. We, as of this point, are planning the meeting to be held virtually again. If that changes, we will be sure to let the board know as soon as possible. But as for now, the plan is to run it virtually again.
Okay. Tom, before we're done taking motion to adjourn, I would ask you to contact Ms. Randall and offer her assistance as to helping her, not physically doing anything, but other than telling her this is the procedure, this is what you need to bring to us, and that we could, because it will not come back to us, it'll go to planning, but
right. Yeah, absolutely, I agree, Mr. Chairman. I think, as I mentioned, every person that reaches out to us about these, that's a conversation we have. I think most of the time, it's a timetable that's not attractive for people, understandably, but I agree. So it is something that we will be looking at holistically, because I think these keep coming up. So I think we want to make sure we address it through the proper channels. So yes, for sure.
Great, thank you very much.
Tom, before on that subject, do you kind of keep a list of these people that are inquiring, and maybe think about pointing them to properties in a location such as this one that somebody that already owns a house and is interested in doing it? I mean, are we trying to gather people together to create a zone, and maybe they don't own a house in that particular area at this point?
Yes, that's correct. We do track all the inquiries that we get. One, just to see if there are any particular neighborhoods that are naturally attracting interest in this type of thing, but also just to maintain a list of people who have interest so that we can just have a database of all of them and make sure that we can take a look at it, the whole big picture, and get a sense of everyone that wants to do this. So yes, we are.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes. Dr.
Just a quick question for Tom. Has there been discussion within the planning department about if we were to allow some more transient rentals, limiting the density of transient rentals in other neighborhoods throughout the city?
What do you mean exactly? Limiting
Well,
density?
I mean, if you've got 5 of them on a street asking for it, that might be detrimental to a neighborhood as opposed to one per block or those lines.
Yeah, I think those are all things that we can take into account and look at, whether there's certain areas that, I don't know if there's a way to mandate that the next door property owner has to live next door, like that example on 4th Street. I think there's a lot of possibilities that we should examine and look at. I don't know what the answer to that is, but I think I think any type of way to increase investment in neighborhoods, but also be cognizant of the fact that we don't want neighborhoods to be completely dominated by transient occupancy, as has happened in other cities. Finding that right balance, what works for us, and getting the public feedback on that is important. So yeah, that's something that has been talked about.
Along the same lines as our original thinking, and that Dr. Steen was disappointed that our realtors are not telling these people what some conditions are. Is it a possibility that we can go to this, or the city could go to the Realtors Association? They've got a local group, and ask them to maybe they need to do a little bit of training to their salespeople, so that the lady spent $25,000 or whatever it's been to remodel her house, and it's very nice. And now she can't use it as she wants. Not our fault, but I still feel bad for her.
Right.
And if she, like she said, she specifically bought this house so she could do this, and the realtors didn't shy her away from it. Somebody's not doing the job that they need to be doing, and it starts with the sales force of the realtors. So
yeah, no, I agree with that. I think that's, as I mentioned, I think there's no lack of empathy for the situation, because it's not something we would want anyone to have to go through and be surprised by this. I will say there have been efforts over the last year to really engage the realtor community, in promotion of the city, but also regulations related to city zoning. I do think most of them do a good job, and we have relationships here in our office with many of them in the area that can easily call us with any types of these questions and are familiar with our code. But also, that being said too, there's also ways for us to improve our outreach, our ability for seeing availability of transient rental districts. Either it's simply on our website, and that's something we're working on too, to make it more of a just like comprehensive guide to online, so you can easily see where these things are allowed and where they're not allowed. So I think there's a lot of pieces that we're working on to make sure that people are more informed and aren't surprised when they get down the hole and find a dead end like this. So I agree, that's important.
Okay, great, thank you. If there's no other business, a motion to adjourn is in order.
Motion that we adjourn.
Second.
And we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much, guys. This was fairly painless.
Thank you all.
You bet.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
All right, guys.
Take
See you
care,
later.
everybody.
Yep.
All right, bud.